Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul. We're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, we are joined by Bethany and Emily of OADSP. Did I get that right?
Ooh, yes, you did. Good job.
I mean, there are letters, dude. Like,
well,
my husband messes it up all the time. He's like,
oh, darn.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is we've had so many different groups on, the letters just start to go, and they all have A's and D's in them. So it's like I could just say any letter group, and I might just get it.
Well, I think this field was built on acronyms.
It is.
We complain about that all the time.
You could make it like a coffee table book, I think. That's
easily.
just the acronyms.
Ooh, we should play like what's the game with the words? Scrabble. Yeah, with acronyms. For
Oh my gosh.
Look.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Totally.
Yeah.
I think that would work out swell.
There's lots of K's, I think, in this field, too. And K is a high-value letter.
Yeah, that and Q.
Uh-huh.
I can already think of
QIDP or QDDP or whatever it is.
QIDDP, I think it is today.
QIDDP. No Z's, though.
LMNOP.
Well, while we're on the topic right out the gate, why don't you tell us your thoughts on the acronyms of the DD field? Because we are always like, I'm just the media guy. I can't remember anything. People come in here and they're like A, B, C, D, Q, F, G, H, P, and I'm like, yes. Okay. I agree with you. So do they need to be taken down a little bit? We need to rework them? Or are you good with it?
I think it's one of those things that keeps people. I don't have a background in this industry, so when I first became involved, I was like, "What? What is this?" It's like an alphabet soup.
Yeah.
And the one I remember having the most difficulty remembering what the heck it stood for was a major unusual incident. MUI.
MUI.
It's like,
Yep.
what's an MUI? What? It's like minor major. Yeah. So I think I did one of those mnemonic things. Exactly. What do you think, Bethany?
You know, I think it's one of those things that after you've been in the field for a while, it's kind of a badge of honor to know the acronyms and to be able to speak that language.
That's true. That's true.
I can agree.
Well, I guess I haven't earned my badges yet.
Keep working on it.
That's why I'm so upset. But so before we get into all of your history and all this stuff that you're working on with OADSP, why don't you give us a little background of how you got into the field of developmental disabilities? You know, because a lot of people seem to have just fallen into it by accident. So whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll go first since mine is shorter and less interesting than Bethany's. I was actually recently moved back from Chicago. I am an actor. And so I had been there doing I've done a lot of different kinds of work, not as much as my sister, but all on the up and up. Yeah. And so I had just recently moved back to Ohio, was actually living with my sister and her family, and just started temping again, which I have done several different cycles of my life. And so one of the temp positions was with the Ohio Provider Resource Association, or OPRA, down in Columbus.
Another acronym.
Yeah.
Another acronym.
Just to point that out.
Right? And one of the funny things about working for OPRA is that every once in a while, maybe 2 times a year, we would get an email or a phone message for somebody wanting Oprah.
Yeah. I think Pete said something about that before.
And when I first started working there, it's surprising how long it takes for you to not want to say Oprah instead of opera, even though it looks more like opera than Oprah. Anyway, so I was temping there, 11 years ago. And it was just for a seasonal deal. So I temped elsewhere after that temp position with OPRA was over, and then came back in the fall to temp again for the same kind of event, and then was turned into a full-time regular employee. So I stayed there for 6 years, and I did a lot of different things. It was an excellent learning experience. But like you just said, Paul, I kind of fell into it. But that was where I encountered OADSP and Bethany. So I'll hand that over to her.
Well, I fell into the field when I was 19. Back when, we actually read the newspaper to find jobs. And I answered an ad in the paper for a residential care coordinator, which sounded kind of exotic. Mm-hmm. And it's a position as a direct support professional. And I worked at a 32-bed intermediate care facility for a couple of years and then moved back to my hometown and began working in a residential environment at a group home with 5 ladies.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have a similar thing. Tony's like, hey, you want to come work here? I was like, yeah, sure, I guess. So here I am.
Don't ask me what was in my cup when I asked that. No.
That was his mistake, not mine.
Did you guys know each other then before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah, he got to see the hustle and bustle of what we do here, and I got to see his intelligence meter when it came to this side of stuff, the equipment, the ear, the awesomeness of Paul.
Well, and likewise, when I was working for Opera, OADSP really stood out to me as an organization there was just something special, and I'm looking at the something special. It's so much about Bethany's own personal drive and ambition. I think as a professional person, she's started as a DSP, now she's an executive director of this organization that seeks to elevate and educate and empower DSPs. So yeah, something special. That chimes with me because
that's good, and that's one of the things that I love to hear. From the roots to the top of the tree you stop. What exactly would you say if people wanted to know a little more about OADSP? Like, what exactly is the organization? Like, how do things work?
So OADSP, speaking of the acronym, stands for the Ohio Alliance of Direct Support Professionals, and we provide training and support to people who work with people with developmental disabilities.
Nice.
So we have training curriculum and that providers use to train their staff. Mm-hmm. We also have leadership development programs. We host a couple of events a year. We just got done hosting our annual DSP recognition event.
Nice.
And we had, I think, close to 300 people at this event, which was great. It's our first face-to-face post-pandemic, thing that we've done.
Wow. And, so from what I can gather, you're starting, or you have started, this kind of like OADSP TV network, which is obviously right up our alley. So what is the goal with this program? So you're trying to raise awareness, or what's going on with that?
So OADSP TV Plus is a free streaming service for DSPs and other people that work in the field. So it's a place where you find resources. So multimedia, we have videos, we will have podcasts as soon as we learn a little bit more about podcasting, which is why we're here today, to pick your brain.
Yeah.
And it's a free service, and we want people to be involved in this, to help us make videos, to tell stories, and, help me out here, Emily.
Okay, so I've always said that it's kind of OADSP's infotainment channel. I shouldn't say channel, since within the platform exists channels. So it's OADSP's infotainment platform, because there is a lot of micro-learning and webinars and seminars that were recorded to be posted to something like this. But I think that there are also some things that are there, maybe not purely for entertainment, but are certainly more on the entertainment side of things than now we're going to sit down and teach you about such and such. And one of the cool things about it is that that's what the plus is. It's not just TV, it's plus articles and podcasts and lots of different ways we can convey either the information or the entertainment. And the reason that I specified about channels is we're really excited that we can have, kind of like how YouTube works, where, you can look for certain kinds of videos, like the reaction videos is something my husband is into right now. So, if you look up #reaction videos, that's what you'll find. So our channels are tended to focus on different segments or pieces of the IDD Fields pie. So there'll be channels for HR, there'll be channels for people who are just starting out in the field, channel for high school age kids that are interested in training in the field and getting ready for that. So there's lots of different ways that we're intending for this to go. It's kind of a starburst, if you will, of of different ways to interact with folks across the spectrum within industry. It's 4 DSPs, it's 4 executive directors, it's 4 DSPs who started yesterday, it's 4 executive directors who are retiring next year. So it's very exciting. It's overwhelming too, just because it is.
I know that feeling.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Well, I'm just
there's
sitting
a lot.
here
Yeah.
thinking about it like, wow, you're hitting so many levels. I mean, because if it's for executives, middle management, and the lowest person on the totem pole per se, that's a lot of curriculum.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, and the thing though is that leadership development is for everyone, and I would
Yes.
say that that's at the core of everything we do is leadership development. So
Well, and I'm glad that you said that, because I think that in Friends for Life, we have the same kind of issue, in a sense, that you have some people thinking who feel overworked, underpaid, and they don't necessarily understand the dynamics of what it takes for an agency even to survive in this climate, let alone the finances and the structure behind a company building. Does anything that you're doing right now help give that understanding, so like the employer and the employee can have a better understanding on how checks and balances are even made?
So one of the things that's my favorite thing to talk about is Leadership Launchpad, and it is a 3-day leadership retreat that is completely and totally title-free. So it's not specifically training about, oh, this is what's behind the scene and yada, yada, but it is a 3-day time period where everyone that comes, everyone from direct support professionals to executive directors, we have had SSAs, SSA directors, even people from the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities. They walk in and it's title-free. So they come in with this, we say come, with an open heart, an open mind, and they learn from each other. And the wow moments that we've seen, we've been doing those for about 6 years. It's amazing. And that's what it is. It's everyone starting to understand where we're all coming from and why things are like that at this level. But here, we perceive it as, oh, you're keeping the information from us. When really someone feels like they're trying to protect you because you are overworked, you are underpaid, and we don't want to burden you with the information. So again, that kind of all comes back to leadership development and understanding that, that people need to be involved in all elements to really fully understand.
Right. And what you said, Tony, about people who are working on the front line not being aware of what it takes to keep an agency going, it's important, obviously, for the people who are keeping the agency going to realize that it's people on the front line who have such an essential role in that. And I think with Leadership Launchpad, which is November 17th, 18th, and 19th, and you can register for it right now by going to OADSP's Facebook page, where there's a pinned link at the very top of the page. You can also find it, I'm sure, through the website or just emailing one of us. They see that everybody is just a human being, too. So there aren't titles involved. Nobody knows who does what at what agency or what department or whatever, because you get to relate to each other at whatever skill set you have or don't have as just a person, and that's important too. End of rant or end of monologue.
So with working in this field, obviously it has its challenges, especially with a lot of people on the ground level right now doing a lot of difficult work and stuff. Do you have any stories from, especially Bethany, if you've had a longer career in this field, do you have any stories over the course of maybe however many years you've been in the field that were just really like, wow, this is why I stay here and do this? Because it's like, we see so much stuff all the time where you're just like, I can't comprehend like how awesome these people are doing and the work they're doing, and the individuals are putting in hard work, and it's just cool to see.
I mean, there are so many stories. And one of the things that I love about what I get to do is, I meet someone maybe when they're in their infancy in the field, and I get to see them grow. And you would think, okay, as a statewide nonprofit organization, we probably don't really get to know people and faces, but we do. And I think it's because we are out there all of the time. One of the stories that just means a lot to me is I worked in a residential I worked in a group home, I said earlier, and it was just very small. There were 4 homes that were managed by this organization, and there's a young woman that came to work for us, and I helped train her. And, about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, she came through Leadership Launchpad. So, and she comes to our events that we have every year. And, that's not just a one-off story. It happens all of the time. We really build relationships and get to see people grow. And I love that we get to be a part of that, and we get to empower people so they see their potential to have an impact in the field.
Right. It's so amazing because I always go back to when I first started. And it was people like yourselves who that paid attention. I remember the first executive that remembered my name, or, gave me a pat on the back for doing a good deed. It wasn't even a good deed. It was just me doing my job very well, I guess. But those are good things to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
And, it's like, it's cool to see what you guys are trying to do, well, doing with the OADSP TV stuff, because that's essentially what we are trying to do as well, just like in a kind of a different space, because we're kind of hyper localized to this Northwest Ohio area, because that's where we're from here, we live here, this is what we're dealing with on the day-to-day basis. But I think the hardest part that I've seen, and this isn't like, I got to be careful how I word this. Like, a lot of agencies or groups or even government organizations aren't taking advantage of what the internet is capable of, like with what you're doing right now. And, you're putting a voice out there, not only, for ourselves and for the Friends for Life as a business, but it's kind of you're opening the voice up to everyone in the field. And I think that's super important. So is that something that you're kind of like consciously thinking of, like we're trying to use this like insanely large and helpful resource, or is it, I don't know, that...
Absolutely. One of the small parts that we have launched with OADSP TV Plus is what will be a series called What Shaped Me. And it's an opportunity for people in the field to share stories that have shaped them. And one of the stories that's on there right now is actually my story. And it's something silly that happened when I worked in the group home, eons ago, 15 plus years ago. Again, it was a home. So you do the things you do in a house. You cook dinner, you do the dishes. All of the ladies helped put the dishes in the dishwasher, and the next morning a couple would unload the dishwasher. And someone lost their balance and sat on the open rack of the dishwasher, and a knife went in the back of their leg.
Oh, geez.
And she stood up, and it falls, and it has blood on it, and it was one of those. But guess what? Guess what I never, ever, ever do, and what I teach my kids and everyone. Put the knives and the forks face down in the dishwasher. And as silly as it sounds, that's a little story that shaped me. That's something that I learned when I was a DSP.
That is terrifying. That sounds awful.
Well, we could mention the story about the 2 lives saved, too.
Oh, yes.
Let's hear it.
We recently gave away the very first ever, for OADSP, DSP of the Year award. And there's a young woman named Romana, and she went into work just like it was a regular day. There were a couple, I think 2 or 3 people that were in the home. One wasn't feeling well. Her stomach was upset. And she was fairly new, had been in the house maybe, 8-9 months, something along those lines. And so her mom was very involved. So the DSP, Romana, called the mom and said, hey, so-and-so's belly is kind of, not feeling well. She's like, maybe she needs to go to the bathroom. So she, she goes to the bathroom, and Romana just kind of keeps tabs on her and, trying to manage all the other things that you're doing when you're at work, cooking dinner and all of that. And
properly loading the dishwasher.
Yeah, right. So Romana hears what she thinks is a cry, like maybe like a baby's cry. Maybe someone in the house has picked up like a baby doll or, brought something home. And, she asks the other ladies, does anyone have a doll baby? Is there something crying? The young woman whose stomach was upset actually delivered a baby, the DSP rescued the baby from the toilet because that's where she was sitting. Did the whole cut the umbilical cord, wrapped it. So she literally, saved 2 lives on that shift.
So Romana, I think, probably is the next 10 years DSP of the year.
Wow. Gosh. Yes, like I'm I'm tripping right now.
Well, it's wild to me because we've heard so many wild stories on this podcast that you would never think, and that might be on the top.
It's up there.
We're going to make like a top 10.
Yeah, for real.
Maybe
We just had a few weeks ago, a guy told us he's a physical therapist assistant, and he was telling us there was like some person with like another person growing inside them, but like
From a tumor.
it was weird. It freaked me out so bad. It's still that. This is turning into like one of those shows you see on like History Channel or Discovery, like the weird stuff that happens.
Were we supposed to be drunk?
Yeah. Oh, you're not?
Yeah,
Oh.
look, we already beat you to the punch.
That's
morning,
not
everyone.
coffee, Tony.
Just kidding, everyone. Maybe. We're not. So, what's your podcast going to be about? I mean, we just kind of are like Joe Rogan style. We just kind of wing it and just hope everybody is having a good day and telling cool stories because that's how we are as human beings. I think Tony and I myself are extremely ADHD, so that's how we operate. But what's your kind of vision? I know you haven't started yet, I believe, but what's your kind of the direction?
Well, I don't know. I get excited when I talk about any of the media related stuff and the podcast in particular, just because like this experience is proving to me to just be improvisational and talk about things, even if you have a script or a theme. Yeah. It's really enjoyable to do. And that, of course, when you're watching or listening, you really pick up on it. So enjoy watching and listening. But I don't know. I think that we probably do. We have ideas for like specific episodes. And I think that if we plot those out, we might begin to see a pattern emerge. I know that we want to give attention to those folks who are making OADSP TV Plus possible. And those folks are the collaborators on our Solutions Center. So you can go to OADSP TV Plus by typing in media.oadsp.org. And you can go to the Solutions Center by typing in solutions, I think with an S, solutions.oadsp.org. So those folks, our collaborators on the Solutions Center, are what's making OADSP TV Plus possible. And I know that we want to have podcasts where we're involving them. And rather than making it like a half hour long or whatever commercial, basically, for whatever products or services they sell, which are fine quality and reasonably priced, we want them to come with stories. Yeah. So I think one of them has suggested doing something about like
distracted driving. Yeah, so he sells insurance. Yeah. And, that's something that, he feels he can talk directly to DSPs about because, they are driving, taking people to appointments and, how important that is. So useful things.
Useful things that I remember as a kid. So this, I remember as a kid in history class, it was like boring, 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 boring. Until there was a section in the textbook that read more like a story, like the pharaoh. Oh, what was her name? She wasn't a pharaoh. She was a queen. Hatshepsut, I think, was her name. And I can't remember. She was married to, like, Akhenaton or something. I remember that, though, those two names, because it was more of a story-type delivery. So I think that with the podcasts, that's what we're interested in doing, is making it more about kind of, again, like Leadership Launchpad, again, November 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's more important to have that human element to things. We want definitely for it to be not hard-hitting like OADSP journalistic approach, but more like, here's who we're talking to today. So tell us about, what it's like to deal with the results of distracted driving. Yeah.
Well, in honoring stories, I think that's going to probably be the consistent theme, honoring people's stories and interviewing people in such a way that you really get to know them. What do they enjoy doing on the weekends? Mm-hmm. I think it would be awesome. When I worked as a DSP, I would have loved to have known more about my director and, other people in the field. So, and vice versa. I think it would be really great for them to hear, those stories about the people that they employ and what do they enjoy doing and how else might they connect outside of work.
Yeah. I think at the beginning, it's going to be more introductory than anything else. We've talked about having just the whole OADSP team, like literally the podcast is. So my name's Emily, and I started working with OADSP just this year after, I got a degree in nutrition and dietetics, and I did some webinars for OADSP about, hydration and protein. And then earlier this, so stuff like that. And then it goes on to the next person. And then we do kind of the same thing with the board. And actually, one of the themes that I came up with is like every Tuesday we have a board member in. We'll call it Board Tuesdays. So, just stuff like that. And different. Yeah, I would love to have, we have DSP council, and both for the supervisors and the DSPs themselves. I would love to have them do their own thing if we can. I'm looking at Bethany would that be okay, Bob? Yeah, so.
Like at any moment, she's going to kick you. Next
And
time.
I say all the time, we are corny. We love to be corny. So, we'll be taking ideas. So, if you've got some ideas for us, just throw them our way. I mean, we the cornier the better.
Right.
People remember corny, right?
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Stories.
we hardly have any ideas, so.
I'm telling you, it's a coin flip every
You'll
time.
be signing a non-disclosure agreement.
I think the fun part for us is exactly what you just said, because a lot of people, even whether it's here at Friends for Life or other organizations we've talked to, we've had a lot of CEOs, higher ups in the company, and it's we ask goofy questions because Tony's a CEO, we're these are just normal people, and you can, as a person working at an entry level position, it can be very intimidating, to work with the CEO. I used to work in this Fortune 500 company. I didn't talk to the CEO. Are you kidding me? I would never do that. And if I did have to talk to him, it was a bad time. That was not what I was. So it brings a humanity to these people in these positions where you're just oh, you've been working in this field for 35 years. Right. Oh, okay, that makes sense. And we want to give people not only those stories, but also we like to ask, how did you get here? You don't just wake up and you're like, I'm the CEO today. You put in time, effort. You have to have a pretty broad skill set to do something like that. So I think that's very important, and teaching is very important to us too. We like to understand the whys and the, the journalistic questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, all that stuff. But I see some stuff on your page right now. You have so many things to choose from, anxiety, there's health tips, there's stuff like that. And that's very important too, because I don't think, not even in the disability field, people in general just don't know this kind of stuff. So these are potentially resources for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking on these webinars and stuff like that, is this all just through OADSP, or is there other entities involved?
Ooh, I'm so glad you asked that.
Yeah, so we really are looking for other partners. Right now, all of the content that's on OADSP TV Plus is our content. But, we actually participated in a webinar a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, and it was Netflixing your association. So we learned some really cool things. Netflix, they replace 90% of their content. So we're wow.
In a year.
In a year, in a year's time. So that's why that show you watched last year isn't on there anymore, because they're constantly replacing their content. So, we're setting our bar a little lower, maybe try 50% or so. But so
our bar's at 0.
Yeah, you're going to see everything.
We were recently introduced to a nonprofit called We Thrive Ohio. There's a man named Christopher Milo that's been doing a lot of interviews and recordings with We Thrive Ohio, and they focus a lot on self-advocates. And so they've produced a lot of videos, and it's great for the community of self-advocates, but the videos are also great for our community as well, and to learn more about people with disabilities and, just how diverse everyone really is. So we're actually going to be featuring some of their videos on OADSP TV Plus.
They don't have a home right now.
Right. So that and other podcasts and things like that, we're very collaborative. So we're hoping to build great, strong partnerships.
A network of collaboration. I love it.
Exactly.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes. That's one of my many the inspiration for my brain trust in a sense. It's I need to be around people who can see a goal bigger than themselves.
Yes.
You know, I truly believe this company, this podcast, even the entertainment that we put out there is bigger than us.
Yes.
And it needs to be put out there, and we can't do it alone. I mean, who would want to do it alone?
Right.
It's not as fun.
No, it isn't.
And that's another thing too that, you know, I'm always kind of preaching to people is it's like, as we all understand, to make a high quality video, I see a lot of companies making these one-off documentary style videos. Those cost a lot of money. I know, because I make them, and they are like a bunch of effort. And like what I basically sold Tony on is a sales pitch is I was like, dude, I could make you a couple videos. It would literally be cheaper for you to just hire me all the time and make unlimited videos. And it's really something that I think
He sold himself to me.
and now I'm stuck here.
Indentured servitude.
But it's jokes aside, it's a pretty good gig, and like the thing is like I think a lot of organizations and companies could benefit, even if it's once a month, twice a month, having a guy or a girl or somebody on their staff who's interested in making these videos. It doesn't have to be 4K HD studio setups.
Well, shoot, if you have the latest smartphone, you have 4K
that. Yeah,
HD.
exactly.
I mean, that's
That
what's
new-
so lovely too, is that we live in this time when, you know, we can have boots on the ground. I mean, you guys have probably watched Billy on the Street. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar.
I literally watch this podcast for hours and hours every week. That's the only thing I watch.
It's one of those things where, you know, he accosts people. He's a comedian. He was on Parks and Rec because
Okay.
he knows
Okay, I
Amy
love
Poehler.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, he was the guy who was always mad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that guy. And that's how he is when he's on Billy on the Street. It's just literally like this 15-minute long thing where he's out, you know, shoving a
Angry.
microphone in people's faces. Not that I want us to do that. That would be
It could be fun.
but that's, I mean,
Right.
we could totally just, you know, sort of draft a few DSPs to say, you're on. I mean, for the next week, just random minutes of, you know,
Yeah.
a day in the life, your life.
That's right.
So, yeah,
When
we'll see how it happens.
Like the point of like why I say this to people all the time is like you have almost an unlimited reach potentially on the internet and a lot of the times we hear from people is like, oh, it's so hard to get these stories out. It's so hard to make people aware. And it's like, YouTube costs $0. Like there's so many opportunities, and I'm not like trying to talk bad. It's like I know companies are strapped for time and cash and stuff. So
I think that's mostly what it is.
And because the next part is you have to be consistent.
Right.
The consistency is, I mean, Paul and I have been in plenty of opportunities where like, oh man, do we have to do this right now? But I think as in anything great, I mean, it has to come with some kind of price to it, not just financially, but that sweat equity is a big deal.
Right. Yeah, it can't always feel good. I always say that everything in life the lessons can either come from like physical fitness or Jurassic Park. The book, not the movie. Although the movie was good. But like with physical fitness, you know, do you really want to get up at 6 a.m. and go do the run? But once you're doing it, it's like it doesn't feel like the sweat equity. So and for me personally, that's kind of my measuring stick for is what I'm doing really worth it? Is I'm aware of working, but the work feels good.
yeah.
Not because of what's happening right now, but because of that bigger vision
Right.
of where, you know,
Well-
I'm going or we're going.
Speaking of bigger vision, you know, what's your plan for the next 5 years or so with this platform? Because Tony and I have a vision for what we want this to be, but we're just starting. So like it's hard, you know. And you go through this too. I'm sure you've started this, and you're dealing with the media side of things. It's like when we started, our first 10 episodes literally have nothing to do with anything. We're like, what is happening right now? I went back and
Seinfeld of podcasts. Not nothing.
but it's like Tony had this idea and we did it. We are constantly making fun of our original episodes because they're so terrible. We didn't even have microphones. The cameras kept shutting off. I didn't know what I was
Because of that
doing.
30-minute rule.
Because of that, yes, and it was just like a disaster. And then we're here right now, and in probably 2 years, we're gonna look back and say, "These are terrible. What are we doing?
What do we do?
So
Why
then
do we
in
have
another
Emily
2
and
years,
Bethany CEO in there.
They'll have
What
a
is
cult
this?
following, so you can never get rid of them.
That's hopefully
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah,
But
if you ladies help us.
We're here for you.
as you continue to build more and more and do more media and get more of a direction, what are you hoping the outcome of is this, like in the long term?
Well, right now it's Emily and I planning the podcast, and hopefully we'll be able to grow our team and reach even more people. And we want it to be an honor for people to be involved with, with our podcast and with everything we do, so we have, people beating down our door and just wanting to be a part of the good stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I think one of the things that OADSP, if there's any fault in the organization, it's talking itself up.
Is that a bad thing? Because that's all we do. I don't know.
No, I think you have to talk yourself up. And especially with OADSP, there are very few organizations like OADSP in this country. Even though, how many years ago, at the inception of the, state organizations like this, OADSP is the only one still around. And the leaps and bounds that the organization has made are just incredible. And so I think that idea of you need to get an invite to that. It's kind of like going to the Met Gala, right? We won't have the crazy outfits. Well, maybe.
Yeah, come on.
Especially if we're on camera.
Don't limit yourself.
But yeah, I think that one of the things that this will really help us do is set the table, not just be at it, but set it and make sure that everybody knows we know that we're the shizzle.
Yes.
That's like G.
Yeah, my kids even say that.
Well, I really like that thought because who said it? I don't know. It's a quote you hear. Like, nobody's going to advocate for you. You have to be your biggest advocate. Like, everybody wants you to fail, essentially, is what they're saying. Is like, everybody wants theirs to be better. So collaborating is very important. Working and hyping yourself up is important because, I don't know, if nobody watches this, we're still here to hype ourselves up all day long.
Yeah.
And they are watching it a little bit here and there, which is great for us. And, I think what you're doing is awesome, and I'm always blown away of how many organizations in Ohio are kind of like taking charge of doing these newer, innovative things, because it's not like I'm out there every day looking at what California or Minnesota or New York's doing, but from what I can tell, Ohio, we're just so Midwest gritty, nobody can tell me nothing, and we just go and do stuff like this because we want to. And I ask everybody that comes here, why is it Ohio? I don't understand. Is it because we have all the astronauts?
Because we're the heart of it all.
Yeah.
We are
Yes.
the heart of it all.
Truly, we're the heart
It's
of the nation.
the crossroads of America. I mean, it's no, I think, accident that so many things, it's the birthplace of aviation, and all of the astronauts kind of come from Ohio. I mean, it's nuts. But I do think that I used to think this solely about Columbus, but now I'm beginning to think it's about the state itself. It's kind of a really well-kept secret. Like the East Coast, New York, the West Coast, LA. Okay, you can make fun of us. You can act like you don't know where Ohio is. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, this flyover country is where it's happening. I mean, this is where, I don't want to say that people on the coast aren't real, but I think that, well, and I've lived in LA twice. Guess where I always come back to? Ohio. So I think you have a point, Paul, because there is stuff happening here. I don't think that this is that work ethic that you're talking about. I mean, it stretches into every different kind of industry. And so I think even in what I sometimes think of as kind of a slow-moving field, and that is largely hinged to or linked to the funding issue. Yeah. I do think that taking advantage of technologies like this and we don't have anything to lose, right?
Right.
I mean, there's just, the sky is the limit. And it's like, well, this exists. It's being presented to us. Why don't we try it?
You got to stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Go ahead.
And I kind of see us as we're a megaphone. We have the ability to amplify voices for people. And, that's what we need to do.
Right. Exactly.
It's so important because one thing, not to spoiler alert over here, but we got like, we're really working to get more individuals with disabilities on the podcast, because those are the stories that we want to hear, like parents, individuals, like, you know, the stories of the workers in the field is important too. Like, you got to have all these voices together to get the big picture of what's happening. Because as of right now, as an outsider, I mean, I went to school for anthropology. So like, I'm always looking at these, like how these pieces of puzzles kind of work together. And, you know, from what I can see is like, there's a lot of disjointed thoughts on a lot of things right now. And if we have these conversations with everyone from the top to the bottom, and I don't like to say it like that, but that's what came out of my mouth, is like,
How about the beginning to the end?
yeah, the beginning to the end, like everyone that's involved in this process, how can we work together to make everything better instead of bickering over here and bickering over here? And it's like, no, we need to all be quiet and meet in the middle and come to solutions. And like, I think that's what these conversations can open up. Not to say that that's our like every time we step into a podcast, like, how are we going to unite the DD field in Northwest Ohio? We're just trying to get people to hear these stories and to understand that, yes, just because so-and-so is having a hard time or this and that doesn't mean it's not like a personal vendetta or whatever, because these companies that get all involved in the politics.
Well, it's a microcosmic version of the larger, world, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's just all different levels of things
Primary
happening.
of perspective.
Yeah, it's cause and effect. Jurassic Park, see, what I tell you. So I think getting people to understand that arguing over your piece of the pie, my piece of the pie, which one's bigger, which has more fruit, whatever, the whole pie is our responsibility. I mean, and you'll be fine. And I think that, yeah, we're definitely in a nice position to be able to amplify that both as a theme of what we're talking about, but also as a reason for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is one of my favorite parts of our podcast, which it's no, I'm just kidding. But this is the most fun that we usually have, because it is a game show that we call
Rapid Fire.
Rapid fire.
I love it.
Yes, rapid fire is would you rather scenario, and I ask you 3 different questions. Typically, I would ask one person 3 questions, but since it's 2 of you, Emily, I'm going to ask you one. Bethany, I'm going to ask you one. Then I'm going to ask you both one together.
Okay.
Now it has to come out fast, so we'll see if you
Time is ticking.
if you're on the loser time limits or not. All right, Emily.
Yeah.
Would you rather work as a temp as a zookeeper training a new lion for 4 hours, or as a ranch hand cleaning manure with your bare hands for 12?
Oh, gosh. I've done the ranch hand thing, so I'm going to go with the lion.
Like no manure for me. All right, Bethany. Would you rather get your phone out of a public toilet with your bare hands, or lick the back of a stranger's phone?
Oh, goodness.
Yes. You might find a baby.
I would say bare hands. Bare hands. Yep, I can wash those hands. It's a little harder to scrub the tongue.
All right, to both of you, and try to answer at the same time. Would you rather shave your head and have a full beard, or have hairy knuckles with a mustache?
Shaved head.
Oh, gosh. I can't even process that.
Shaved head with beard.
Yep.
Hairy
Look at
knuckles
Paul.
and mustache.
Hairy knuckles. I mean, look at me.
Oh,
Also, look
goodness.
at Paul.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll go with the hairy knuckles and mustache because my hair's lighter, so maybe it's less than a full beard.
I'm glad you're taking real world consideration. I've had this idea for years and years and years of wanting to shave my head
the
anyway.
hairy knuckles and mustache.
No. No, I don't know about the beard though. I mean, the whole point is to see what my face and head looks like naked. So the beard would mess that all up.
Yeah, it would.
So
You
yeah,
would
but the
look-
mustache scenario kills it as well. So
Trust me, there's a reason I have the beard. We'll just put it that way.
Well, good job, ladies. I enjoyed that.
Good.
And, that I don't know why. That's always fun because I never know what questions he's going to ask because he writes them during the show, kind of based off of what we're talking about. So we should just make that into a game show with like a big ringing lights and stuff. Now it's just cheesy graphics.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to play. And I think on that note, we'll wrap up here so we can discuss the ins and outs of the podcasting world with you ladies, because I know you
Post-podcast
coming soon. But is there any like things that you'd like to share kind of as closing remarks, and then obviously share where everybody can get a hold of you and learn more and get to the websites and things like that?
Well, first, thanks for having us on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
And again, the Leadership Launchpad is November 17th, 18th, and 19th. Registration is still open. Do you want to talk about the parameters of registration?
Sure. So we allow 2 people from any one organization because it really is about your own personal leadership journey. And we don't want you to have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I'm here with 4 other people that I work with. And, it's really about you. So we do limit that. And we also limit the entire group. We usually do not have more than 25 people at any one leadership launchpad. So we really get to know people and can really help them work through where they are on their journey and help them figure out where they're going.
It's very immersive. It's 3 days, 2 nights. And it's kind of like a lock-in. I don't know if you
No, I remember those.
So it's like Leadership Launchpad / lock-in. So it's very exclusive in that way, and it's taking place in Columbus at the
Nationwide Hotel and Conference Center.
Nationwide.
We always have people call that say, I live locally to Columbus. What's the rate if I don't stay at the hotel? That's actually not an option. So we do seriously kind of lock people in. But it's great because there's a pub. There's a lot of like networking in the evenings. And that's a really big part of the program itself.
Again, that human side of leadership.
Also sounds like a great place to start some podcast questions and interviews.
I think he was giving us a tip based on sort of the wink side eye thing there.
There's a tip.
We've done them in the
Got
field
it.
before, and it's super fun because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a wild ride.
I'm sure. So that particular event, again, you can find the link to registration on OADSP's Facebook page. And, we've mentioned the OADSP TV Plus platform site, the Solution Center platform site. OADSP itself is oadsp.org. And, there's links for emailing Bethany and other team members there, contact us, that kind of thing. We have Facebook page, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. Line those followers up, because I think right now on Twitter we might have like 4 followers. I think we're even newer at that than you guys are at podcasts.
Twitter's a rough game for us podcasters, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you ladies for coming in, sharing all your awesome information. And for anybody who's watched this video, if you could like and subscribe down below, we'd super appreciate it. And I will throw all the links in the notes down below so you can find your websites. And it should be out before the registration closes. Don't hold me to that because anything can happen, but it should be out by then. So thank you so much, and let's talk podcast.
Okay. Thanks.
Sounds great.
Later, guys.
Bye.